And so, pulling in all the projections that create the appearance of the phenomenal world and resting in the essence, nature, that is the natural, simple being, that is yourself. Pulling in all of the projections that create the appearance of the phenomenal world, the surface of life, and recognizing that you are the simple, natural being. You are not the character that is projected in the appearance of the world. Everything that is longed for is already here. You already are utter perfection, divine wholeness, and pure truth. Everything that is longed for is already here. It is about pulling in all the projections, dissolving everything that causes us to keep projecting ourselves and believing that we are a small, individual, divided being, separate from the wholeness that is. It is this incredible possibility to live absolutely rooted in the knowing of the essence of who you are. Every being is longing for love and happiness. Love and happiness is the essence nature of all beings. And so if we stop looking out there in the phenomenal world that is temporary and transient, and we drop into the simplicity of this moment that just is, the simple being that is natural and ever present, what we discover is the essence nature is right here. The self, the natural, simple being. It's not fancy. It's not a journey. It's just turning in the right direction, looking inside and discovering what is always here. And of course, once we know the essence, nature, the simple being, we have this incredible possibility to dissolve, collapse everything into the being, collapse all of the projections that create an appearance of a world and a me that are separate. The projection is only in appearance so we can see what we are not in order to find out what we are. It is not projected to be indulged in. It's not supposed to be this Disneyland for the ego, although the majority wouldn't think it's very fun anyway. It's a cycle of misery. It's a cycle of suffering. The reason for the suffering is that we resist. We resist what's happening and we want to control because we want to try to find happiness in the world. We want to try to find love in the world because that's what every being is longing for. But the love and the happiness is right here in the essence nature, in the wide open, innocent heart of being. And every being is already this essence, self, naturally, simply, by divine order. There's nobody left out of this truth. We have just learnt to look in the phenomenal world, in the transient world, for what we are longing for, and to look for fulfillment in the temporary. But of course, we can only find fulfillment when we find what is forever, what is eternal, what is timeless. Because if we look in the transient and temporary for eternal happiness and unconditional love, we will, of course, always be disappointed. We suffer because we do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. We see things from a limited perspective, and that a limited perspective is a projection. So we are only ever seeing ourselves. We're only ever seeing from what we are. So, how do we see things as we are, as the shining glory? We rest in the essence nature of being. We rest in the shining glory. And when we are resting in the shining glory, all we see is the shining glory, right? Just simply being here. The simplicity of being. The incredible grace is there is nothing to do because it's already here. And these words, this resonance is an invitation to remember, spontaneously remember, fall deeper into the nectarine bliss of simply being. The true heart of being is always full. The love that you are, the love that is always without conditions, is always eternal. It does not want anything from you, but it will keep coming back for all of you because its commitment to itself is to go all the way through, and it will not stop. We could say the part of you that already knows, that always is the love that is without condition, that part of you will keep coming back for every single fiber of you until you are shining and shining in the luminosity of your own essence nature. When we know the essence nature, then of course it is to just keep dissolving everything that seems to be fragmented and separate. Every time we notice as the aware being a judgment, a resistance, an opinion, some kind of upset or trigger, it is to recognize that the grace of the way that this all works, the divine intelligence, is that it is reflecting something. So we have the possibility to see it, receive it, experience it, and let it go. It gets naturally let go of when it dissolves into the being. The way of the world has generally been that we have learned to project outwards, to stop feeling, But it's only when we remember how to feel, and we don't just say, oh yeah, I've remembered. We feel and we feel and we feel, and the fineness of feeling is actually the most incredible opening to the true intelligence, the true wisdom of what we are, of the pure consciousness. As we feel and we feel, and we come to more and more subtlety of feeling, we start to feel our own consciousness, the pure consciousness. We start to feel the subtlety of being and recognize the essence nature of being. It's a felt sense. It's a resonance. It's an alive presence. And in this felt sense, there is a knowing in the being, a natural knowing. And the knowing is the intelligence, the true intelligence of consciousness, consciously aware of itself, illuminated in that knowing. And the illuminated knowing is an aliveness. And here, true knowledge, pure knowledge, which has nothing to do with the mental. It is the self knowing itself, the being, knowing the being, and just simply being. And so alive in the knowing of itself. This is the essence nature that we have always been longing for. It is to know this simple truth. So here now, as these words come, to feel where the resonance of aliveness is felt and recognized. You are not looking for anything that you are not already. We are just meeting underneath the play of the world. We are meeting in the simplicity of being, in the oneness, the wide open heart that is pure love, innocence, immaculate being that is ever whole. And we meet here in the shining remembering of what is true, what is natural, what is simple. The wide open heart that is empty of content and yet full, so full of itself, so full of the love that is, so full in the aliveness of simply being. If we try to look for what love is, if we try to look for what happiness is, if we try to understand with the mind, or if we try to reference, let's say, transient experiences of happiness or love, and we try to compare, we will always miss the purity of true love, because true love isn't like the experience of the roller coaster of human love, let's say. Although the experience of human love, of course, has moments where we touch into pure love. But within the human realm, there are conditions and wants and needs and desires that are constantly clouding the purity. And we're constantly trying to chase, again, that experience of pleasure, getting a reflection that makes us feel seen or loved through the external. But pure love, true nature, is this felt sense of simply being, where there is no story, no content, no attachment, just a purity, and a heart that is empty of content, is full of itself, full of love. Love cannot be measured. Love is never ever divided. If love is given to one, it does not mean that it is being taken from another, right? True love, pure love, it's undivided and without condition, cannot ever be lost. It's the true nature. We are longing for love, and we look for love in the external, of course, usually in relationship. But this kind of love is an experience that is tainted. It's really a bargaining tool in human dynamics. It's all part of the play of trying to get the needs met. But right here in the simple essence of being, there is a love that is so pure, undivided, without conditions, that it is shining in and of itself. It just loves, just loves. And it is into this love that everything has to collapse. All of the needs and desires and the wants that are trying to look in the world, in the phenomenal world, for fulfillment, all of it has to collapse into this pure love, this unconditional, wide open, infinite simplicity of being. And so here too, happiness. Again, happiness that's not caused, happiness that is without cause or without reason, the essence nature. And we can touch into this essence right here now. This is the grace, is that we can touch in and feel in the felt sense of being, simply being, that right here, love is here, happiness is here. It's just stripped of the phenomena. It's stripped of mood. It's stripped of opposite. It's stripped of human dynamics. It's utterly stripped. And it just is happiness, just is happy. And love just is love. It is the simplicity of being, the simple essence of all beings. Every being has this essence. It is just seemingly buried, but it is not hidden. It is only obscured when we are paying attention to the thoughts, the beliefs, the concepts, and the false knowledge that has been acquired in the worldly life. And so the invitation of this moment is to let it all go without knowing how to let go. There is so much grace in not knowing how, because when we don't know, a surrender has to come, where we give up all of the strategies that we have been employing, trying to find fulfillment in the world, in the phenomenal world. It's like trying to find fulfillment in your own mind, right? Let's be honest, we all recognize that the mind is pretty crazy. So trying to find fulfillment in a crazy old mind. It is to simply be aware of that. We start to zoom out. When we can be here just simply being and be aware of the mind and the thinking, the moving, changing elements of this moment. Be aware of sense perception. Again, sense perception fragments the moment, but awareness is like the super sense. Awareness uses the sense perception, but it doesn't divide. Awareness is just here. It's taking it all in, but it's not grasping outwards. Awareness is simply being aware. And awareness, being aware, is simply naturally receiving. It's like an open receptivity. So as these words come, just to notice where in direct experience the truth is recognized. That awareness is simply aware, openly receiving. It's not grasping outwards. It's not trying to be right. It has no desires. It has no wants. Awareness just is simply here being. Simply being itself. And here the essence. When you can feel the felt sense of being here, there's an aliveness to the presence, to your own presence. There's an aliveness to the felt sense of being. The aliveness is the aliveness of life. Doesn't belong to anyone. It is just the simple aliveness of life. We could say unconditional life. Unconditional life, unconditional love, and simple causeless happiness right here. The simple being, just being. Hear the stillness. Hear the silence. Hear the deep resting. Hear the most extraordinary relaxation. When attention relaxes, everything relaxes, right? It's the immediate relaxation of attention. When attention relaxes, the felt sense of being deepens. When you can feel the felt sense of just being here, it starts to feel more and more subtle, more and more subtle, more and more alive. And as attention rests and being just is, we could say awareness is just simply aware of itself just being here. There's a natural stilling of consciousness. And magical magic is that the stilling of consciousness is the stilling of the mind. It's the quietening of the mind. You see, there's no doing. There's no one to do anything. The stilling is natural as there is a resting. So to come to the felt sense of being, feel yourself simply here. Feel the simplicity of existence. Feel this felt sense that is alive, the knowing of the being. And there is something so subtle to the knowing of the being. It is the being simply being and knowing itself. We could say it is the innermost being, awake to itself. And as the innermost being is awake to itself, it recognizes and remembers its naturalness, its essence nature. The recognition happens in the being. It does not happen in the experience of someone or in the world. It happens in the depths and subtlety of being, that the being itself says, oh yeah, this. It's like this great relaxation, this great exhale, and the remembering is here. There's a softening, a felt sense of being the openness, a felt sense of being the wide open heart. And there's a knowing which is so much vaster and more luminous than any kind of mental knowing. It is the radiance of the heart that is always shining and luminous in the knowing of itself. So as these words come, to feel the resonance, and where the resonance aligns, attunes, recognition that you are this, that these words are yours, that what is speaking and what is listening is the same. The meeting here is in the oneness of the wide open heart that is pure love, that is pure causeless happiness, that is joyful and delighted just in its own essence nature, shining. And hear the glory, hear the beauty, hear the grace of true essence nature. And so when we recognize in the natural being this essence nature, it opens up this magnetic pull into more of this, more of your natural self, more wholeness, more love, more beauty, more naturalness, right? It's a pull into yourself, the self being pulled into itself. Recognizing that the felt sense of longing, you do not really know where that longing is, because the felt sense of someone longing for self, for being, for freedom, for love, suddenly, are you that one or that one? Right? There's a merging, and the longing is the unconditional love, longing for all of its threads to come in, right? So we could say, is small self longing for big self, or is big self longing for small self? Is there a difference? Of course not. Right? So you start to feel just the aliveness of being, and that you no longer know where you are or what you are. There's no longer two sides. There's just one being. You're no longer flipping backwards and forwards in this moment. There's just the simplicity of being, this wide open heart that is shining in the knowing of itself. It's so clear. It's so clear. It's so clear. It's luminous. There's a transparency, and that transparency we could also call purity. We could also call it innocence. It's clear. It's clear vision. It's clear seeing. It's the brilliance of the wide open heart knowing itself. And here the shining radiance is love. It loves, and it loves, and it loves, and it cannot not love. And that is why there is openness and allowing and acceptance here, because love just loves. It welcomes everything openly. And here, anything that appears as the phenomenal world is welcomed. Because of course we can know this essence being, but until we have tidied everything up, all the loose ends, right? And our work in our human life is to tidy up the loose ends. And it takes a while, it's quite a job, right? Tidying up the stragglers, pulling all of those threads in, dissolving every projection into the being, clearing up all of those storylines, pulling in the projections, not looking for fulfillment in the worldly, not looking to be seen, to find resolve, to be understood, to be loved in the worldly. We pull in every thread that we find that's looking for something out there. As soon as awareness illuminates it, we pull it in and we dissolve it into the being and recognize that any subtle thread of ourself that is looking in the external will only ever be satiated in true wholeness, only in pure love, only in divine wholeness. So we welcome every exiled part of ourself into the gorgeousness of the essence nature of being. Because love just loves, and love just keeps on welcoming everything into this wide open, shining, shining heart. There is nothing left out. There's nothing that doesn't belong. All in perfect divine timing, which is always now. Every subtle thread will reveal itself and offer itself up, offer itself forward. It will surface out of the subconscious or the unconscious to come right to the surface of life, to be welcomed into the light of unconditional love, into the being, into the naturalness. Everything will come forward to refine into the oneness, where there is utter and complete belonging for every single fiber of your being. To belong to the one being, to remember wholeness. It is incredibly simple. And yet, the conditioning can be thick and strong, and the resistance to let go of the habitual patterns, protections, and defenses can be very strong. And so it takes a great sincerity and a great resolve. It takes humility. But all of these start to arise naturally, the humility, the resolve, and the ever-deepening sincerity naturally arise the more we are resting in the being, because the longing is to know all of yourself, and the longing of love is to keep coming back for all of itself, right? So the intelligence starts to move as the qualities that are required, the humility, the courage, the resolve, the sincerity, the openness, the willingness, we could say in the openness, the willingness to feel vulnerability and collapse vulnerability into openness, to collapse everything that feels like it needs to be defended and protected, to collapse all of the protections into love. They won't always just give themselves up. They need a little coaxing, a lot of presence. They need the holding space of wholeness, of presence, and unconditional love that is the true nature. So as we come to know the essence nature, the being, we have this incredible infinite capacity to welcome everything, to be the light, to be the warmth, to be the love and the presence that is not denying or judging or pushing away anything, to be the love and the wholeness that welcomes everything forward into the light, the love of wholeness. And we are gifted the resolve and the sincerity and the naturalness that is the humility of the one being, the humility that is grace. We could say, in the process of refinement, it feels like someone being humbled into the being. But the process of being humbled delivers us into the simplicity of being, where there is no longer someone. You are no longer the projected character in the phenomenal world. It's all a projection. You are the essence. You are living as the essence being, the simple being, the natural being. You recognize that you never have been a projected character, that character has always been on the screen. It comes and goes. It's an experience. But you are the essence that is eternal and infinite, unbounded. Here in the wisdom field of grace, there is no awakening. There is no liberation. There is no enlightenment. That's all of the world. It's all part of the phenomenal world. Here in the wide open heart, there is just simple freedom that has never been bound and doesn't need to be liberated, right? We are before, in truth, we are before everything. We are before every story. We are before every teaching. We are before everything that we have learned. We are pure, innocent, untainted, untouched, undisturbable, invincible, immeasurable, wholeness, immaculate. You already are. Give up the idea that you have a project or a path or a journey to follow. Give it all up and be free. Yes, there is a process that appears in time of refinement, but you are not that someone that imagines they have a journey. That's all part of the illusion where the mind is keeping itself alive. We have to come to the essence nature and live this essence nature. Live as the light, as the wide open heart. Live as the essence, not the projection. Watch the projection. Watch all of the projections. Watch the projection of the phenomenal world as it clarifies and purifies. Because in this process too, you start untangling all of the threads from the collective. You free yourself from the collective. And as you free yourself from the collective, you are in absolute service to the upliftment of the whole. It's like on an airplane. You put the mask over your face first, save yourself first, and then you are of use to everybody else, right? Come to know the essence nature. Come to know the essence nature. There is only one. There is only one. We are never apart. You come to know the essence nature. You are not leaving anyone behind. You are uplifting the whole through knowing your essence nature. One undivided whole in this realm and in all, let's say, dimensions, right? In the world, the phenomenal world, there's lots of concepts around dimensions, lots of concepts about what happens in other dimensions. Do not be fooled by any of it. Focus only upon the being. Focus only upon being the being. And do not be pulled in by the subtleties of stories of the astral worlds and other dimensions, because it can be such a distraction, such a huge distraction. The mind loves all of that stuff, but it's all part of the delusion. It's all part of the phenomenal world. Only know through your direct experience. Do not ever hold on to mental knowledge that you have acquired on the way. Let it all go. Only live in your direct experience. Only trust your direct experience. Any true teaching will point you to your own direct experience and invite you to confirm in your own heart, in your own simple being, in the oneness, where there are no hierarchies. There are way showers, of course, but no hierarchies. It is to always come to your own direct experience so that you are resting in an autonomy of the self. You are resting in the wide open heart, and you are not relying on anyone in the phenomenal world telling you anything. You are free in your own essence nature, and you are equally free as any other being, right? You have this possibility. Again, it is to do with pulling in all of the projections. We can have these very deeply held ideas that we are not worthy of being one with God, that we are not worthy of collapsing all of the projections into unconditional love. And so we can hold subtle projections that there are beings that are higher or better, and it is not true, ever. And any way show will never, ever do anything other than show you the way to know in your own heart, to know in your own heart that there is utter equality, utter oneness. It's one, only one love, one happiness, one being. And yes, of course, we deepen and we deepen and we deepen. But the deepening, the ever deepening absorption happens as we dissolve our own discordant patterns of consciousness, as we dissolve our projections that are creating these phenomenal stories that we can get attached to. When we come to oneness, the utter oneness, we are actually coming to utter aloneness. Of course, that can feel terrifying to the mind. But the grace is when we come to utter aloneness, we come to oneness. We are not holding any needs or wants of the phenomenal world. We release all of our attachments to the projected world, and we live in the essence nature of being. And we still embody and we move in our humanness. But now we are meeting in essence nature, right? Where we're not playing out the dynamics of needing, wanting, needing to be seen, needing to be loved, making projections. We're meeting in the wide open heart, in the one being. We're meeting in and as the being, the nectarine ocean of bliss that is the simplicity of being. The measure cannot be measured in the worldly sense. The measure is, how free are you? How happy are you? How triggered are you? How angry are you? How many projections? How much blame? Right? It's not a measure that's measuring quantitatively. It's just a noticing as awareness. Oh, shining the light. There's something else illuminated that can be dissolved into this wide open heart of love. That's the beauty. It's between you and you and God, you and your divine wholeness. Right? So we collapse everything into the one until that all that remains is the one, in the one, as the one, only one, not referring to itself because there is only one. And the one sees only itself. sees only the shining light. We could say shining in every being, a sameness, where there's no projection outwards, there's utter transparency. There's the ability to see where beings are struggling, but love just loves, and love just holds the love and does not move from love. Love just loves and loves and loves and loves. And so it is to meet the part of yourself that just loves all of you, that is happy always, absolutely regardless of what is happening on the surface of life in that phenomenal projection, right? Because you are not the person, you are not the character, you are the wide open heart that is love, that is the being, that is always, always shining simply as itself. Essence, pulling in all the projections and resting in the essence nature, the same essence nature of all beings. Hear the love, hear the beauty, hear now, this moment, this moment, this moment. Timeless being, simple timeless being. And then, as long as we have a body, embodied love, embodied light, embodied essence. But you never leave the essence. You are moving in your humanness as an expression of divinity. The humanness, the humanity and divinity are not two. It is all divinity in truth. The humanness is the word that we use for the expression of the divine on this particular, we could say dimension or realm in this projection, right? But the essence never changes. The essence is silent. The essence is still. The essence is whole, pure, innocent, before everything. And when we are resting in the knowing of this essence, we have this incredible capacity of being no one, of wanting nothing, of being nowhere, only ever here now, just meeting what is here as love, openness, right? And so then in this knowing of the essence, right now in this moment, right? We don't project into the future how to hold on to this, it's just to revel in it, revel in the resonant knowing of who you are in truth in this moment. To feel the simplicity, to feel the boundlessness, the knowing of the being that just simply is. As the words come, it is to recognize the resonance, where you feel the yes inside, where you feel the recognition, indirect experience, If there are words that come that do not resonate, just let them float by. They're for someone else in this moment. Receive the resonance and feel the depth of absorption in your own recognition, in your own knowing, the aliveness of the knowing, the aliveness of the intelligence, right? As consciousness consciously recognizes itself, the aliveness is the intelligence. It recognizes itself. And this intelligence is true wisdom. It's pure knowledge. It's the self-knowledge, true self-knowledge, the self-knowing itself. Nothing else is needed but this. From here, the field of intelligence is infinite wisdom. Everything is here. All that is needed. It arises, it bubbles up like from a wellspring. Can ask any question and offer it into the silence of your own essence nature. Offer anything if healing is needed. Feel all of the feelings and offer it into your own essence nature, into the silence, into the source. Rest in the timeless now, and whatever is needed will come forward in its own magical way, in perfect timing. We are fully resourced in the being. We are fully resourced in the being. It is to come to this depth of relaxation where we can start to recognize the truth of this indirect experience, because only as direct experience deepens does the pull for the attention to wander back to the worldly and looking for things in the worldly start to fall away. We could say what happens is those conditioned learned patterns to look in the worldly for solutions and fulfillment. They're discordant patterns in consciousness. It's all one consciousness. So as you come to know your true consciousness, in consciousness, the purity of your own consciousness, in the purity, in the aliveness, the discordant patterns, they start to naturally unravel, right? So then the pull towards the worldly and looking for fulfillment in the worldly naturally starts to relax, because there's a fulfillment being recognized in consciousness itself, right? And as consciousness recognizes itself, is consciously aware of itself, everything can be seen in awareness, in the light of awareness. And everything, every pattern of consciousness that is seen in the light of awareness sees itself in true nature and collapses into true nature. So all the protections naturally, as part of this intelligence, naturally collapse. Every river is flowing to the ocean. Every river is flowing to the ocean. So rest in the ocean. Rest in the nectarine bliss of the ocean of being, and allow all of the rivers of individuality just to flow into the light, into the wide open heart. Let everything flow in, and remember its oneness. It's natural. It is as natural as a river flowing into the ocean. You see the beauty of the natural world. The natural world is the untainted world that is constantly reflecting us through nature, right? That's why we love being in nature, why we love being in water, why we love just flowing as life, because that's natural. It's completely natural. It is our own nature. Feels good because it's natural. Just like the natural being, the essence, nature. It's natural. It's simple. It's right here. Rest in the ocean. Shine the light of awareness and allow all of those rivers that are discordant patterns of consciousness just to rise up to the surface and flow into the wide open heart, where the love that is longed for is waiting, where the happiness that is longed for is eternal. Right? No more disappointment here. We have been habituated to struggle. We have been habituated that something is missing, and almost habituated to want to continue to struggle, to want to rest in what is familiar and known. A little bit of struggle, a little bit of suffering, saying, well, that's just life. Well, actually, it's not. It's not that challenge doesn't happen. The cycles of the human life have the whole plethora of experience, right? The whole spectrum of experience. But the suffering happens when we resist it. When we are resting in the essence being, we live through it in our humanness, but not with resistance and separation. We live through it in openness, with ease, right? Whatever arises. It's not that we push it away, or we don't have tears or movements of energy, but so different, right? As we keep meeting the resistance, recognizing that the resistance is just a part of ourself that is longing to be one with love. Can we allow that resistance to be felt as resistance, and not to suffer in it, but just to receive it? Let it settle out. Let those discordant patterns settle out and collapse into the love that is so deeply longed for. Resting, relaxing, softening into being. Hear the kindness, hear the patience, hear the boundless compassion of the wide open heart that is the mother, right? Everything is held, everything is welcome, everything is loved, is love, is loving.